So that's a good point, Rika. That's exactly, it comes back to that ideology.
On one of the articles that I was reading over this, I printed out the responses. People will go in and put their opinions, and there was a man on there that was talking. He clearly stated that he was a Republican previous in the conversation, and he said, "You girls fail to understand in many cases there's a man on the other end of these abortions that may not want that. I know in many cases that men don't care, but it's beyond me how anyone wants to condone killing babies. The babies never get a chance." And he goes on and on. But he's bringing up that idea of that a woman's body, your choice is still under a man. Like that man.
If you listen to the verbiage of that, he's very condescending. You girls.
Yeah.
There's a man.
And
on
previous to that, he calls
them
them wicked. Girls wicked.
Who was this again?
It was just Gary WFBG. I don't know.
It was a comment. No.
Just a comment.
It was a comment on an article.
Oh, okay, just a person. Okay.
Yeah.
Not somebody we can.
And the thing, and personally, I understand that there can be situations where maybe there is what if there's just a kind of happy situation where there's a couple that's been together for a long time, but they're young. She gets pregnant. She's not ready to be the mother, but he wants to have the baby. But when you think about how it is after the baby's born, I'm pretty certain in that situation she would be expected to play the mother role, to do most of the work involved.
Have you seen 16 and Pregnant?
Right.
Have you seen how that works out?
Right. So it's like, unless you're willing to, if I don't want to have the baby and you want to have the baby, well then are you going to take on all this? Because.
But I think that's still
those are relationship issues, right? Those aren't governmental issues.
Right.
Right. But I'm.
Right.
Yeah.
And going off of that, about when HB 15, the sonogram bill, went up, I think in the House for vote, what I guess the pro-choice and Democrat representatives did was they purposely put forward these sort of absurd amendments to kind of show how absurd what they're doing is on the other side. And so one of them that I thought was just really clever and really funny was that Representative Marissa Marquez put forward an amendment saying that any man who is the father of or got someone pregnant outside of marriage has to get a vasectomy, and that if he's the father of 2 or more children by 2 or more women outside of marriage, that he has to have a vasectomy. And of course it was struck down immediately but if you think state or federal level, there is not a single piece of legislation that regulates anything having to do with men's bodies. Not a single one. You know what I mean? And so obviously, and you hear that and you're like, that's absurd. They can't do that. They can't require someone to have a vasectomy. But it's exactly right. And so that was the point. And then there's Harold Dutton, I think. He put amendment saying that if you want women to have these babies, then you have to pay for their the child's college tuition and their health care until they're 18, and then he put forward another one saying until the age of 6. So saying if you're going to force people to have these babies, then you have to take care of them under the state. And of course, they were struck down immediately.
And sperm donors should be responsible for all of the costs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was reading another article too, and it goes back to the having to watch the sonogram and just the right to education and whatnot. So then I wondered, and I was having a conversation with somebody online, and she said, well, do women then have to watch videos on the pain of childbearing and the psychological issues that come with having children? And are we really fully informing them on having birth or not having birth? Or having an abortion or not having an abortion? Yeah. Are we truly fully informing them?
That doesn't have an abortion.
Yeah.
What really struck me on the video clip that you showed was how few people it takes to make a difference. There were 325 for and 8 against.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. 28 against.
28 against.
Yeah.
It's like it's one person's voice that it's a number that has relevance.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's always important, I think, in terms of you're talking about this activism, is that there are things you can do, even though, unfortunately, right now there is the supermajority in the Texas House and Senate And so that's very scary. And so this HB 15 will be signed into law, I would say very soon. Not yet. They were supposed to, it was supposed to be heard yesterday, actually, to, I
Monday.
think, out of this, it got pushed back. It was supposed to be yesterday, and then it got delayed again. But Governor Perry said he can't wait to sign this piece of legislation and all this sort of stuff. So that's very scary, that this isn't just something that will be shelved and then never talked about again. Like, this is going to be signed into law pretty soon, so that's very scary. But I can't remember what I was going to say. Oh, and so there are things you can do in terms of activism on either side, I guess, regardless of your stance. Yeah, you can call your representatives, and I guess that's the most effective way, or writing letters and those sorts of things. But I have something else to say, I can't remember.
Well, he's pushing it through as an emergency bill, which puts it at the top of the agenda to be
Which
signed.
is very interesting.
Yeah, so that was interesting. Okay, so on the federal level, I would say that it worked because great. Great. I would say on the federal level, it did work in some, and fortunately, we still have a Democratic Senate on the federal level, where in Texas, it's like completely GOP dominated on both House and Senate. So that's kind of scary. But so like the defunding Planned Parenthood, like that didn't go through because of the Senate on the federal level, and because of all of the protesting and the like 800,000 people that contacted representatives, or some very large amount. But here, it's hard not to get discouraged doing all like the activism and trying to push back when you know that it's something like 100. The vote is like 100 to 50 in terms of GOP to Democrats. So it's literally twice the amount of votes. Yeah, like that's really scary. So I don't know. I mean, it's like
assuming that all the GOPs are going to vote against.
right.
That's true.
Right.
And I think there's reasonable people on both sides.
Hopefully, yeah.
I have a list of some of the bills that are pretty ridiculous I'd like to mention. HB 2573, this bill would require any physician or clinic staff member who suspects abuse or neglect of a minor under 14 to obtain aborted fetal tissue and submit samples to the state for evidence. HB 2988, this bill would eliminate women's access to abortion except in situations deemed medically necessary to prevent severe impairment or death. Legislation would detrimentally limit a woman's ability to make appropriate medical decisions for herself and her family. HB 3446. This bill aims to establish minimum standards for abortion facilities with regards to plumbing, heating, lighting, ventilation, or other design features. The legislation, rather than protecting women seeking abortion procedures, is an attempt to push providers out of service by making them non-compliant. And then another one, HCR 25, I don't know if I already mentioned this. This non-binding resolution would urge Congress to remove confidentiality mandates for minors from family planning service programs. This would require clinics to notify parents of minors seeking birth control.
Yeah.
And one more, HCR 132. This proposed amendment would update the Texas Constitution to define the beginning of life at fertilization, thereby conferring all protections guaranteed to those residing in Texas on the unborn. So the moment that you find out that you are pregnant, that is a Texas resident in your womb. Even if it's just 2 weeks along and the cells are still dividing and there's absolutely nothing going on, really.
Grass is live.
Right.
Trees are live.
I was about to say,
That
until they find out
means
it's a
that-
woman, then
I
she's
mean,
not a
Right.
president.
But if the tree had a vagina,
That
that would be the
specifically
issue.
is terrifying.
So those are
I have a
just...
fact question that goes with that. I wanted to know, I don't know if any of you found out in all your research, you seem to have done a lot of good research. There have been so many high-profile murders of doctors who provide abortions in their clinics, and they have become martyrs for one side of the cause, one part of this cause. I'm wondering, what are the numbers of doctors who actually publicly provide such services, and what are their conditions in Texas? Like, what are